Welcome, everybody. This is another conversation with homeschool moms in the trenches. Again, the point of these conversations is to connect with moms that are able to share you tips, tricks, and encouragement that are real moms just like you. So, with that being said, I'm really excited to introduce you to Cheryl. Cheryl, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So, I love to just jump right in. How long have you been homeschooling? How many kids do you have?
So I started homeschooling my son. I have one son. I
Okay.
started homeschooling him in kindergarten.
Mhm.
And then a couple months into it, he really wanted to go to public school. He begged me, and I was like, all right, this was a choice, but let's see how you do. He did
Right.
great in kindergarten. When they tested him in, he tested quite high, so they put him in a K1 class.
Okay.
And he made it through kindergarten. He loved it. He went into first grade. We had some issues.
Right.
He was bored. And his teacher was a new teacher and very young and just would
Mhm.
not cooperate with us, was pulling him off, and he was kind of alone all the time,
Mm.
moving his desk away from the other kids because he was disturbing. And I said, well,
Mhm.
he's bored. You've got to challenge him, you
Right.
know. So after a few months, I pulled him out. I said, we're going back to homeschooling. And I have been homeschooling him ever since. And we are now in fifth grade.
Nice. And I found you. This is where I found you. I don't know if this is where you found me, but I had put a thing on Facebook asking for pictures of homeschoolers in the wild to be added into our 13 teeny tiny truth bombs about homeschooling book. And I love this picture. I don't know if everybody can see it, but I love this picture of your son. And you shared that he has a passion and a love for science and he wants to be a geologist.
Yes.
This reminds me so much of a couple of my kids because they were all in. Like they wanted the lab coats, they wanted the clipboards, they wanted all the things. So Matthew has a love for science and geology. Where did that
Yes, he
come
does.
from?
In every form of science, but geology is his absolute favorite.
Okay.
Um, so in the beginning, when I first decided to homeschool, so when I first homeschooled in, kindergarten,
Right.
I didn't know anything about it. I didn't really do any research. I just knew that public school scared me anymore.
Right.
Um, I have six older boys that all went through public school, and they despised school, you know, and sad to say that none of them graduated.
Wow.
They could not stand school,
Right.
and they would, be at school all day, come home, and for 3 more hours, they're sitting at the table
Yeah.
trying to do more schoolwork, and
Right.
I did not want him to go through that. So I did this whole, oh, we can do an online thing, through North Carolina. And
Right.
Matthew did not like it. He was never really on a computer. So it was very challenging for him. He was bored again. He just didn't like
Right.
it. And then after I pulled him out of school in first grade, I started just going onto Facebook and trying to find homeschool anything related to homeschool that I could get tips. And I found
Right.
you.
Oh. Oh.
So I found you way back in 2020, I believe.
Oh,
um,
wow.
so, and I've purchased so much of your stuff.
Oh, wow.
Um, I learned how to make printables and sell them. Now I have not done it in years.
That's okay.
Um, yeah, life got busy. My husband passed away a few
Oh,
years ago.
I'm sorry.
So I haven't done any printables in a very long time, but I did take your course to learn how
Nice.
to create those printables and sell them on Teachers Pay Teachers.
Nice.
And I have just followed you ever since. And like I said, I have purchased several of your uh, Bible things.
Mhm.
Uh, I think one of them was like the alphabet one
Oh, the
a
ABCs of
couple of
God.
years ago.
Yeah, the ABCs of God. Right.
Yes,
Right. Hmm.
yes. So I have purchased several of your stuff.
Okay.
I tell everyone about you. I have a great support system.
Oh, good.
Um, and so when I start talking about anything related to our homeschool, my family listens, you
Right.
know. And I love that. And so I was really excited to be able to do this with you today, and my family is excited for me.
Oh,
And so
I'm excited. And it's just because everybody's so unique, everybody's so different. There's so much noise out there
there
about
is.
this is what you need to teach your kids. And I hate it, Cheryl. I hate it because I had to
Mhm.
get to the end of my homeschool journey in order to be able to see it clearly that it really has nothing to do with what our kids learn. It's how they learn,
How they learn it.
how they're
Yes.
encouraged, how they're seen. Like Matthew right now is 10, right on the tiptoes of what I call the gauntlet, right? He's just, and you have 7 boys. We need to have another conversation. I have 5. Um, so you'll know this to be true. Right around the age 12, he's going to be flooded with hormones that are going to
It's
transform
actually
him.
already starting.
Exactly. And
And
so he's going through that gauntlet, right?
he is,
Yeah.
yes.
Which is where curriculum beats our kids up, chews them up, and spits them out
Mm-hmm.
because the curriculum doesn't connect with the
No.
kids. It's dry, it's boring, it's horrible, and it's just terrible. So, what do so just switching gears, what do you use for curriculum then? So, how,
Do not purchase curriculums.
yay.
Um, I I use a lot of life skills.
Uh-huh.
I incorporate things that are going on in our home right now.
Perfect.
Like cooking.
Yep.
Um, you know, um, like balancing his savings account.
Yes.
Um, we know he's into science.
Mhm.
So when we step outside, I will find something, just one thing, and
Yes.
ask him to tell me something about it. How do you think that ended up there?
Nice.
Why was, and that's what we do. One of the first things he learned about science, and I think this is where his love of science came in, was, Mom, why is the sky blue? Do you know why the sky is blue?
I love it.
And I was like, well, buddy, actually, I don't, but I bet you we could look it up. He's like, I already know. And
Ooh.
so he was 4, and he just
Wow.
started telling me about why the sky is blue, and how there's these little molecules and how they
Yes.
reflect. And he was 4 years old, and I recorded it because I was just so in awe. And
Wow.
he still at age 10 tells that story to everyone as to
Yes.
why the sky is blue. And then from there, he goes, do you know why the ocean is blue?
I love it.
You know? And so he loves to educate. And I love that about him.
I love
Some
that.
people obviously will be like, Matthew thinks he's a know-it-all. I'm like, no, Matthew just loves to share his knowledge. That's
Right.
all he's doing. He's not trying to force it on you. He just loves to share his knowledge.
And he's
You know,
10. He's
he's
10. So the art of communication and the art of understanding your audience, whether or
yes,
not they're tuned in or not, that's a skill that
it
takes
is.
a long time. And a lot of adults don't have that skill.
They do not. I have a couple of my older children, actually.
Mhm.
So 2 of my older children that still to this day will, Mom, when are you going to put him in public school?
Mhm.
Mom, he needs more socialization. I'm like,
Mhm.
listen, I want you to point me to any other 10-year-old
Right.
that can not only socialize with kids, he interacts with kids his age, kids that are older than him,
Right.
younger children,
Right.
and can sit down and have a serious conversation with an adult.
The beauty of homeschool.
You know,
I
he's
love
not going to get that at public school.
it.
He's going to
Mm-mm.
get bad influence. He's going to get
Yep.
kids are seen, not heard.
Yes.
We need to be quiet. We need to walk in a straight line. I said, I don't
Yes.
want that for him. You
Mm-mm.
know,
Mm-mm.
we have freedom,
Yes,
you
and
know.
there's so much, one of the things that I talk to a lot of homeschoolers, especially with our life coaching that we do with Homeschooling Olympians, and I notice that there's a pattern. Middle school kids right at Matthew's age get lost. They get lost. They're just, and the parents don't know how to connect with them, and it's terrible. And so the beauty of being able to see your child and then to feed into what they love and to touch academic and life skills all around it is that they become fully engaged in the learning process. And it's
Right.
not rote. There does not exist a list of 47,000 things that kids need to learn in order
Right.
to graduate. It
Right.
just doesn't exist. What does exist are curriculum sellers that want you to think that just because he did fifth grade this year, he needs to do sixth grade next year.
Right.
And they print it big so that the kids feel bad if they're in fourth grade something or whatever. It's just not true.
I don't like having the grade labels at all in
Mm-mm.
here in New York. You
Mhm.
know, when I do his IHIP forms and stuff, I have to put a grade that
Yeah.
he should be in. But we don't really teach at a grade level either because he's
Yeah.
advanced.
Yeah.
He was already labeled as gifted.
Right.
And so I don't, that's one of the reasons I don't do curriculum either.
Yeah.
So I don't call it unschooling because I've read up on unschooling and I don't feel that's what I do because I don't just let Matthew go all day long and let him choose
Right.
um,
He's
how he's going to learn
guided.
and what he's going to learn. He's
Yeah.
guided.
Yeah.
And so, but like I take something, here's an example. A few years ago, he had this passion for wolves and he still
Mm.
does. His bedroom is nothing but wolves. Okay. So I took that passion and almost the entire year, that's all we learned
Love
was
it.
about wolves. And I was able to take every subject and
Yes.
incorporate it. You know, he made a wolf's den out of
Oh,
clay and painted it. And,
I
you know,
love
he
it.
added rocks and sand. I mean, it was beautiful. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And we did maps, you know, for
I love it.
geography, for how big of a space they lived in. And so
Right.
we incorporated math in writing, you know, and the one thing that I do love that I find on Teachers Pay Teachers quite a bit is those flat books. I think
Yes.
they're called.
Do you know how to make those? If you don't, I
I,
can teach you how to make
ooh, yes, teach me. I love them. And he
them.
loves them because they are fun. He learns
Yeah.
something, he reads it, he lifts it up,
Yes.
and he's wrote his own answer, you know,
Yes.
and he loved, and we did several of those with wolves. And we learned about wolves not in just in our country. We got to learn about other countries.
Right.
So that's how I teach.
I
That's how
love
he
it.
learns, you know.
So then how do you address think now I have five, only one accidentally became a scientist and mathematician. Not because I tried, but because like Matthew at age 4, how come if heat rises, it's colder on the top of a mountain? It's like that's
Right.
it's hardwired in their brain to ask
Yes.
these like observational questions. So how do you address math?
I am extremely well with math. I'm
Okay.
extremely good with math.
Okay.
And so I do have like worksheets that I will
Oh,
create
okay.
myself.
Good.
Um, I'm all about flashcards.
Hmm.
I love flashcards, manipulatives.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be the manipulatives you buy. They
Right.
can be little stones that are outside in the yard, you
Right.
know. So when we started learning about fractions, you know, yeah, I could have gotten about a fractions workbook. And I do have a few workbooks, and sometimes I will rip out a page, you
Right.
know, and have him just, let's see where you're at, buddy. How much do you remember? You
Right.
know? And so I took that and I bought a pizza and we started out with just a pizza,
Yeah.
you know. So we ate 2 slices of pizza, Matthew, and there's 8 slices, you know.
Yeah.
And I've done that with measuring because he loves to cook.
Okay.
So every month right now, I go through a company, it's called Kiwi Co.
Oh, love them.
And first we did engineering for an
Yes.
entire year. And now
Yes.
we're doing the cooking one.
Okay.
So if I purchase things, it's things like that, you know, that
Perfect.
he gets this special box in the mail every month and he's
Yes.
excited and, you
Yes.
know, he can't wait to dive into it, open it up and just dive into it.
And there's
And
so
sometimes
much
we do,
intrinsic learning in there. Like it comes
yeah,
with, my youngest son, I waited until I had my youngest son and we did subscription boxes with him. Oh my goodness. He learned so much in those. There's so
yeah,
much and so many springboard things happened just because of that kit. I loved it. So
yes, we absolutely love them. And our subscription's almost over. So we're going to go through and I'm going to let him pick which one he wants to do this year. And
love it.
you know, so I do let Matthew make a lot of his choices, the choices as to what we're going to learn, because
Right.
I feel that a child learns best if you focus on their interests.
Yes.
So one of the things that I explain to a lot of people, who I get a lot of people that reach out to me, they know I've homeschooled for 5 years,
Right.
and they reach out to me and they want to know how I keep Matthew interested and how do I keep him focused. And it's because we don't sit down
Right.
and spend hours. Do we sit down at the table sometimes and do some work? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But I do not test him.
Right.
I think it's overwhelming
Yep.
to be tested, you know.
Especially
And
when
I
they're
just,
young. Especially when they're young.
especially when they're young, yes. I said, I just take whatever is interesting him at that moment,
Hmm.
and my brain gets to going because I am creative.
Oh,
I
I
have a
love
very
it.
creative mind, and I paint and I craft and
Yeah.
and I will just take that and start really, my wheels start turning, and I'm like, ooh, we could do this, this, this. And I start writing things down. And I got
Yes.
that from you. In one of
Brainstorm.
your, yes, the
Yeah.
brainstorming. Like,
Yeah.
I think that was probably the second or third thing that I purchased from you was the
Yeah.
brainstorming.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do. And then I take that and I say, all right, Matthew, what do we have to do to find this information? Where do we
Love
have to
it.
go? You know,
Love it.
one of his favorite shows that he loves to watch, and they did, I think only one season. It's called Brainchild,
Oh,
and it's on YouTube or Netflix, maybe. I can't
okay.
remember, but
I'll look
Netflix,
for
he
link.
hollered. He's like, it is Netflix. It's called Brainchild,
Okay.
and it's all science. And he has watched Brainchild probably 30 times. No matter how many times he watches it, he still gets that excitement, like he's watching it for the first time and learning
Because
something for the
he's a
first
true
time.
scientist at heart. That's why
He
he's a true
is.
scientist. Which,
He
if he was a
is.
musician, he would do the same thing with music. If he was a dancer, he would do the same thing with creative moves, right?
Yes.
It's the magic of leaning into what they love is that they don't get bored, they get thirstier and hungrier to know
Yeah.
more. It's
And it's
beautiful.
funny how when I think about the beginning, when I got this, it was free for the whole, they
Yeah,
sent me everything I needed to teach him online and everything.
yeah.
And then when I came back, I was spending all kinds of money and I was buying this and buying, and I literally had this 5-tier bookshelf and it was just filled with stuff. And then I'm
Yeah.
like overwhelmed because I have so much, I don't know what to do with it.
Yes.
To now I have this little tiny shelf right below me,
Right.
that's just got some stuff
Just some
and
stuff.
just some stuff.
Yep.
And so that's, it's just amazing how my journey and how much I have learned over the
Yeah.
years from veteran homeschool moms like yourself
Yeah.
and other, I think you're the only actual veteran homeschool mom I actually follow. Other
Mhm.
ones are more like free printables,
Right.
free, I love
Right.
those.
Yeah.
You give me something free, I'm game.
Yeah.
you know,
We homeschoolers love free
I
stuff.
am all in for anything free. Hey, buddy.
But
All right.
one of the things that hey, hi Matthew, how are you?
Good.
Good. What are you learning today?
Today we really haven't started anything. It has been a very busy morning for me this morning.
Nice.
And so I told him school is after this. Well, I was thinking 10:30. Okay, I was up this morning. I'm all ready. And then I was like, 10:30 comes and I'm like, oh no, I forgot. We have a time difference.
Oh,
So it's 1:30 my time.
oh
So
my
you're all right,
goodness.
buddy. So
Nice.
so I was like, well, I guess we're just gonna kind of chillax for a little bit. I'll do this interview and then we'll figure out
Yeah.
what we're gonna. A lot of times I don't plan. I used to be this like, oh my gosh, I have to plan for the week. I have to plan for everything.
You don't.
And now I don't.
You
We
don't,
just
especially because you're in the course. So one of the things, and you're like, you've already self-learned these things, but you're in the middle of this season that I call flourishing and fun. You cannot do this season wrong in homeschool
I,
if you lean into what the kids love, right? If you're talking about rocks, if you're talking about geology, if you're talking about science, then you cannot go wrong with Matthew.
exactly.
The way that you break it is by throwing a bunch of workbooks and quizzes and tests and these kinds of things. It's why I tell people when I'm talking about homeschooling Olympians, I'm going to save you a fortune in curriculum. If you can get this, you will
It's
save a fortune in curriculum. So I love it. I love everything about it. So you've talked about you make your own curriculum, you're following interests, you buy things on Teachers Pay Teachers, you have subscription kits. So are there any other resources that you have found most useful at this stage?
At this stage, I'm going to say I rely on, Googling things,
Mhm.
um, finding good resources,
Right.
things that are facts. So like
Yeah.
we had to learn about, in New York, they give us some very specifics.
Right.
It was a hard transition for me. We were in Florida where there's just like
There's nothing.
nothing. We just got to do it.
Yeah.
So we had to learn about US history,
Right.
and slavery this
Right.
year. And so I did have some books that I bought years ago. And so
Right.
I pulled them out, and there was some great stories on um some individual slaves. And so
Nice.
we did read those, but then we dug more, and I found movies. I
Mhm.
love to find movies that are true based, that are
Yes.
based on truth, that
Yes.
have facts in them, you know, so that he is really getting a sense of what really happened,
Love
you
it.
know, because history can be what's the word? Not confusing, but conflicting,
Yes.
you know.
And
There are
especially the
so
farther away you get from number one, the event or the thing or the person,
yes,
and how many times it's gone through the game of telephone.
yes, yes. We
My
use
my
music
science my
a lot.
scientist this morning came to me and knocked on my bathroom door as I was blow drying my hair. He's like, I can't wait. I just heard this on the radio and I have to share it with you. I'm like, okay. So I turned off the blow dryer and he said, back in the day, and you'll just have to Google Pepsi and submarines. Because back in the 80s, they did this thing with the Soviet Union, trying to they created this deal. This is like this massive thing, but it was a total rabbit trail of, okay, you heard this, let's look. Was it real? Was it like, where is the truth? And just
Yes,
trying to get closer. I'm like, okay. And he's now 20. He's now 20. So even then, he's thinking all of these things like vetting information and how can you verify which pieces are true and which pieces are untrue. And
right.
so, no, I love it.
We
So,
use the library. The library is probably our favorite
yeah.
resource. Um, and we live a block away from the library.
Do you have a good
So,
library or do you have to
oh,
order things in?
no, we have an amazing library. And if I need something, if I can't find what I'm looking for, they will order it for me.
Nice. Nice.
Um, I've been keep trying to talk to them, and I'm like, so when are you gonna do some kind of homeschool STEM or
Yeah.
something? They do have Monday after school things that my son does go to. And
Mhm.
so he gets to interact with some other kids, and he's in like a Lego club and
Nice.
things like that. So there are some things that he can do that's later on in the afternoon,
Right.
but I keep putting it in their ear a little bit, a little whisper. I
I
really
love it.
think you should, I will more than gladly help with it.
Oh,
You
they will
know,
love it. They will
I
love
will
it.
more than gladly help with it. I don't have a problem doing that. And I
Mhm.
don't care if it's 1 day a month or 2 days a month,
Yeah.
but homeschoolers need more resources
Right.
outside of home,
Right.
you know, and there are a few here.
Mhm.
I've only lived in this town now for about since October. I mean, I grew up here, but I just moved back. So
Nice.
I've only been here since October. And now I'm working from home because I'm a single mom now. So I work from home and I do childcare and I homeschool and
Wow.
so sometimes my days are very full and
Right.
some days they're not so full. So
Right.
kind of have to, and I'm just now trying to learn how to balance it all. My husband passed away almost 3 years ago, but I couldn't work for over 2.5 of those years. I've had two
Wow.
neck surgeries
Wow.
and I just did not heal well. And so I finally was able to go back to work, but I'm like, I need to find something at home.
Right.
I've been a stay-at-home mom his whole life,
Right.
and I don't want a job where my hours are all over the place. And then I'm really off balance and not having a clue when I'm going to teach him. And then I'm paying for childcare. And you know,
Right.
so it took me a while, but I finally actually, my sister owns a business and she had gotten rid of someone. And so she, brought me in. And so I work
Wow.
from home. I make my own hours, which is phenomenal, you
So
know?
I hear the theme in your homeschool journey, at least with Matthew, that there's a couple things that you're very passionate about making sure that he gets the opportunities that he needs and that he's thriving, but you're also very resourceful and that you allow your creativity and his curiosity to become this beautiful combination that
Yes.
sets him up for success. That's beautiful. As we're close to the end, so I have two final like questions or rabbit trails I'd love you to take. What would you
Okay.
say is the hardest part of homeschool?
The hardest part of homeschooling, I think, yes, it depends on what stage you're in,
Right. True.
in the beginning, if you're, a beginning mom, or homeschool parent, doesn't have to be a mom, is knowing where to begin.
Yes.
I get a ton of people that reach out to me. They don't know where to begin. I'm like, well, the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what your state laws are.
Yes.
That is top priority. Number one, you
Yep.
can plan on homeschooling all day long and you can buy all these resources and do all this stuff. And then you look into your homeschooling laws and find out that you just wasted a ton of money
Yep. And time. That's
and
terrible.
time.
Mhm.
So that is the first thing you need to do, and to find someone that can mentor you,
Right.
find someone who is experienced, find a veteran homeschool mom,
Yes.
or dad, because they are out there.
Yes, they are. Yes, they
They are
are.
out there. Um, and look for someone that can really help guide you. That is probably the best advice. The hardest thing that I think I ever have gone through over the years was um finding out that, or thinking that all these expectations of having to have him sit down at a table and do
Yes.
curriculum or do it for X amount of hours, and it was hard and it
Yes.
was stressful and he couldn't focus, and
Yes.
I was overwhelmed, and there was days I would cry, go in my bedroom and cry and just go, what am I doing wrong? I just don't know what I'm
Yes.
doing wrong, you know and
Yeah.
so and the more I followed you, the more I realized I didn't have to do that. I didn't have
Oh,
to sit there for hours upon hours. I'm like,
there is
I
a
might as
place.
well send him to school,
Well, and there is a place for academic learning.
right.
It's so far away from a 10-year-old. It's not,
Hmm.
it's so far away.
It
Out of all
is.
five of mine, I only have one that's an academic. And they all went to college. They all at least got their associate's degrees, but we didn't touch crazy formal, sit at the table, complete all of the problems on the page type learning until they were well into high school. And then it
Right.
was just almost like physical training so that they would be able to make it through the classes. Like it was coaching, but so much later. Oh,
Right.
that makes my heart so happy that I'm so that makes my heart so happy. So final
Yeah,
word.
I don't know if you can go on your page and see how long someone's been following you, or, but
No,
yeah, it's been literally since the beginning of my journey.
that's
You were, I
great.
believe, the first one I found. Like,
Wow.
Um, and so I have just continued to follow you ever since. And then when I
Um,
saw your, just post a picture, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is
I
what we're
was
doing
so
today. I was excited.
that it's like
I
full
love his love
circle
of
to me.
science.
That's like
And
a full circle. I love it.
I'm like you, I am not a scientist.
Me neither.
I sometimes most times he teaches me a lot of
Yes.
science.
Yes.
He really does. He teaches me a lot of science. And I think that's why I tell him every day. If there's one thing I can tell any parent, whether you are homeschooling your child or your child goes to public school, learning never ends.
It never ends.
Ever.
It
Ever, ever,
never
ever.
ends. It never ends.
I am 53 years old and I
Mhm.
still learn every single day. And it is good for our brain to learn every
Yes.
single day. You
I love
know,
it. I love it. I even with my scientist, because he's always talking science, that one of the things that we worked really hard with from Matthew's age until even today is to know your audience. Who are you talking to? Make sure that you're not waterfalling them with scientific jargon, because what you don't want, there's two kinds of people. There's people that are going to smile and nod and they're thinking, oh my gosh, when is this kid going to stop talking? Like, okay,
Right.
yeah, that's great. And then they're going to avoid you, or
Right.
they're going to be rude and they're going to walk away. And so you want to make sure that you are communicating at somebody's level. And if they're interested, they'll ask you questions. But to water down the vocabulary so that you're not killing them with all
Right.
of these things. And he's done, it's taken years of mentoring to be able to communicate clearly. Even the other day, he was learning about something, and he started a new job. I'm trying to patch to what he was actually learning. Oh, knot theory, KNOT theory. He had done all of this stuff on knot theory, and he bursts in and he's telling me all about this knot theory. And I look at him in the coach training mode. I'm like, dude, you're starting a new job today. Do not have this conversation with the new people at work because you'll blow them away. And serendipity would have it that it just so happened that one is so funny. He's tying on an apron, and the kid that he's working with is, do you know what kind of a knot you need to tie on your apron? And it took all of his self-control to not vomit, not
Oh my
all of it.
gosh.
So great. Okay, so last thought. So if you bumped into a frazzled homeschool mom or dad, they're completely out of their wits, their kids are still in the younger stages, what advice would you give to a frazzled, overwhelmed homeschool parent?
The advice I would give them is just take a breath, take a step back. Tomorrow's a new day.
Yes.
I say that to Matthew all the time. If he is having one of those days and he, yeah, there's days he doesn't clean his room, there's days I don't do my chores. And the thing is my favorite thing to tell everyone, tomorrow's a new day.
Yes.
Take a breath, take a step back. Tomorrow's a new day. Sometimes we just have to sit down, take a breath, and not think about it.
Right.
And when we're calmer and we've relaxed more and you really think about it, you're going to realize that what you're stressing about is minor.
Yes. That's great.
That is, I just had a conversation with my niece.
Mhm.
She's had a lot going on in her life for the past like 6 or 8 months, between her
Mhm.
mom having cancer twice and some things happening with her stepson. And now she's got some things going on. And she called me and she's practically in tears and she's just overwhelmed. And she's like, I just can't do it anymore. I give up. And I'm like, do not say that. You do not give up.
Right.
I said, I know you have a lot going on right now, but this is what I want you to think about. I said, you have this, and this going on that is just horrible. It is. But now I want you to think about all the positive things going on in your life, because I promise you, sweetheart, they outnumber those
Yes.
negative things going on in your life by 1,000.
Ah,
Sometimes we have to look at the positive and not focus on the negative.
yeah. And take
You
a
know,
break, like you said, so that you
take a
can
breath,
distance
take a break.
yourself. Yep. Distance
Yes, you
yourself
have to distance
away.
yourself. And I
Mhm.
have to do it sometimes. And like I said, I've been homeschooling for 5 years, going
Yep.
on 6. And I have to distance myself sometimes. Even I feel sometimes I'm just like, okay, I just need to take a breath today.
Yes.
And you know what, Matthew, can you do mommy a favor? Can you just go into the TV and find something that's educational for you?
Yeah.
It's going to just pique your interest because mommy just needs a break, you
I
know?
love it. I
And
love
he does, and he will. Like the other day, I got done working and he's like, all right, mom, what are we doing for school? And I'm just like, oh, I don't know. I'm so tired. I was literally just kind of like,
it.
I had work, plus I had a 2-year-old,
Right.
so I was just exhausted. And I'm like, what do you think we should do? And he comes out here and our little shelf and he's like, you know what, mom, we have not used these the multiplication cards in a long time.
Oh, I love it.
I was like, no, you're right, buddy. We haven't. Can we test me and see how well I remember them?
Ooh,
I'm like,
smart.
absolutely. So I'm holding up the cards and I've got the entire deck,
Yep.
and something I would love to learn from other parents. This is the easiest and best way to teach your child the multiplications of 7, 6, 7, and 8. So I've got all of these ideas for the other numbers. There's so many tricks to those numbers. He struggles with multiples of 6, 7s, and 8s.
Yeah.
So I did kind of figure out something that was working for him the other day that used to work for me, but I'm sure there's other things out there. So let's say you've got, 7 times 6. I automatically, right off the top of my head, know what that is. And he's just like overwhelmed because 7 is an odd number and 6 is an even number, and it throws him off.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I want you to tell me the number closest to 6. 7 times what is close that you do know.
Right. You're an intuitive teacher. I love it. I love it.
And he's like, oh, I know that number, so he's like, that's 35. I'm like, okay. And we're multiplying by what? He's like, 7. I said, so what are we going to do with that 7? Oh, I'm going to add it to 35. Correct. So yeah, it might take him a few more minutes to figure out what 6 times 7 is. But
you're teaching the problem solving, like the critical thinking behind. I have this old book of education in the very early 1900s. And one of the things it says is about math is not about getting the right answer. It's about how you break down, how you solve the problems, how you get there, because he's equipped for life if he knows that he has these alternate ways to get there, versus if he looks at it like, well, I don't know 7 times 6, so therefore I'm a failure.
Right.
Not true. I do have something. When my kids did a multiplication boot camp, it turns out, I think there's 6 or 7 multiplication facts that fall into the, wow, I just want to be a pain in the tush category. And that's like 7 times 8, those.
Yes.
And you just have to hard memorize them. The other ones, there are tips and tricks for. I'm writing notes of things that I'll put in the show notes below. But Cheryl, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for taking time to hang out with me. Thank you for sharing part of your journey. Thank you for sharing a picture of your beautiful son with me.
Now, when does your book come out? That is my question.
It is
Matthew's been bugging me. He is so excited.
It is out. I can send you get a free PDF copy of it. So I will send you a free PDF. It is available on Amazon. So you can get it on Amazon, and it's called, I just have my proof copy in front of me, but it's the 13 teeny tiny truth bombs about homeschooling. And the heart of this book is truly that curriculum is not where it's at. And so there's just it's a fast read. You could sit and read it in probably half an hour, maybe 40 minutes.
Right.
But what I hear from homeschoolers is that, no, I just need to do one at a time and just marinate on the lesson. So, but anyway, Cheryl, thank you
Yes,
for your time.
You.
And I hope
you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. And I know that so many people are going to be so encouraged. So thank you, everybody. And I'll see you next time.